Want to generate passive income through property? In this video, I'll break down the essential steps that you need to know for your buy-to-let property journey here in the UK. No jargon, just practical advice. So let's start with the absolute basics. What is a buy-to-let property? A buy-to-let property is a property investment that's specifically for renting out to tenants, which generates rental income and capital appreciation over time, which is the value of your property increasing. Okay, so first up is financing a buy-to-let property. How are you going to do that? Well, you're going to need a deposit. And for buy-to-lets right now, you're going to need at least 25%. So for a property worth £200,000, you're going to need at least £50,000 in readily available cash to take that mortgage out as a buy-to-let. Many new investors secure this deposit by either releasing equity from their existing home or taking out a personal loan against their own personal income. If 25% deposit sounds quite challenging for you, absolutely don't worry. I'll explain later on how you can get into property investment with as little as £10,000. After securing your deposit, the next step is to get an agreement in principle so you can go start putting offers out on properties. And the agreement in principle is likely a document between you and a lender to say how much you could potentially borrow, which makes your offers legitimate. And if your deposit is 25% and you have £50,000, your agreement in principle would be up to £200,000 to go put offers on properties in that price range. You can get the agreement in principle from any lender who's offering buy-to-let mortgages or even a mortgage broker. It's worth noting that for buy-to-let mortgages versus, say, normal residential mortgages, the interest rates are slightly higher to account for a difference in risk. And that difference is both good and bad. The good part for you as the investor is because the mortgage itself is paid by the rental income from the tenants, not from your own personal income. So this allows you to get a lot of properties, depending on your deposit amount, which all in theory pay for themselves from the rental income from the tenant. But that's why the interest rate is slightly higher. We're not talking a lot, maybe 0.5%, but you also get a choice between variable and fixed rates. And that totally is up to you and depends on your risk appetite. I like to go for fixed rates because I like nice predictable costs. But if you feel like the market will go down in the near future, it's worth getting a variable rate. But it's crucial to know that when it comes to a mortgage that's specifically buy-to-let, the main difference in the process is that a lender will take that potential mortgage and put it through what's called a stress test. And a stress test applies a few variables to this mortgage to make sure that if markets change, say the rent goes down or interest rates go up, that in that scenario, you won't necessarily default on the loan and you can still afford to pay it. But luckily, I've put it into my property investment spreadsheet, which you can see here, which helps you run all the numbers for a mortgage calculation and whether or not it will pass the stress test. So let's do a quick example. If I'm looking to purchase a property for say 200,000 max, put that in, I can go to the purchase and financing cost tab and say that I've got a £50,000 deposit for that, which is 25%, leaving a 75% LTV, which is the loan to value ratio. And I'm gonna get that on an interest only mortgage over say 10 years. And then I'll put in a 4.5% interest rate because this is a buy-to-let, so the rate's probably a little bit higher. And that gives me a monthly payment of £562.50 on that interest only mortgage. And then I can swap over to the buy-to-let tab and put in the estimated monthly rent that I think I'm gonna get out of this property. And the estate agent should give you a good idea of what that number could be. But take that with a pinch of salt because estate agents are known to exaggerate a little bit. So maybe knock 10% off. I'll just put in a number here, about £1,000. That's about right for a £200,000 property. And I can see that if I was charging £1,000 of monthly rent on a 4.5% interest only mortgage with a 25% deposit, then it would pass the stress test. Okay, so you've secured your deposit and you've got your mortgage. Next thing you need to consider is initial costs and stamp duty. Stamp duty's recently changed here in the UK. It's gone up from 3% to 5% since, I think, the 1st of April. And all buy-to-let properties would fall under this because it's an additional property, an investment property, and so worth considering, and you can see that on the spreadsheet. And on top of that, you've got your other fees like conveyancing fees, surveys, and then any renovation costs that you need to add on. This spreadsheet can help you work out what those initial costs will be and how they may affect your potential investment. But on top of that, you then have your ongoing fees like management fees, property maintenance, and any landlord insurance, which brings me into the next consideration, which is legal responsibilities if you're a buy-to-let landlord. You'll need to conduct right-to-rent checks, annual gas safety checks, provide tenants with EPCs, energy performance certificates, issue clear tenancy agreements, and protect tenants' deposits in approved schemes. It's quite a lot to manage. Staying compliant helps you avoid costly fines or eviction complications. So after all those costs and all those legal implications, you should be left with a gross profit. But what happens then? That gross profit isn't exactly yours. You then need to pay your own personal tax on it. And that depends on a number of factors, on what personal income you have already, what tax band you're in. Section 24 in previous years has massively disrupted any higher taxpayers because it changed the way the government considers mortgage interest when it comes to your tax. You can no longer deduct the interest on a mortgage from the rental income that you're getting. And in some cases, you're actually paying more in tax than you are getting in gross profit. So when it comes to buy-to-let tax efficiency, you can either buy it in your personal name or through a limited company. And I'll have a dedicated video that dives into which one is more appropriate for you. For example, I run my properties through my limited company because it's way more tax efficient for me. Your situation may be different, but subscribe below so you don't miss that video and you can work out which one is more appropriate for you. So it's at this point that you've got your mortgage, you know all the considerations and implications, and you know what tax you're potentially going to have to pay. You then need to choose which kind of buy-to-let property you're going to be purchasing. Are you going to go for a single let, which is, for example, to a family? Houses of multiple occupants, which HMOs, or maybe even retirement homes or serviced accommodation. HMOs, serviced accommodation, retirement flats, they provide way more complexity and risk. So if you're a beginner, I would just start out with a single let, at least until you get your head around buy-to-let property investments. So as I was talking about earlier, what if you don't have that 25% deposit available to get into buy-to-let straight away? Well, you have different finance options available to you as a beginner investor. I talk about them in the video, which I'll link up here. And by following one of those, you can actually get into a property like the one I've just purchased for less than £10,000, and I'm hoping to make at least 30k profit on that. And you can do the same. So we've been through quite a lot trying to cover all the basics of buy-to-let property investment here in the UK. But remember, these are just the basics, and there is a lot more to it as well. But hopefully what we've talked about so far should give you enough of an insight to at least get you started. My property investment spreadsheet that I've demonstrated throughout this video, I've actually made it free through my website, which I'll link down below. If you have any questions as well, please feel free to leave that as a comment and I'll try to get back to you. Catch you in the next video.